Russian piping tips, or flower nozzles, pipe all of the petals of a flower in several colours with just one squeeze. They're easy to use once you know how, so in this tutorial I'll share 6 hacks for Russian piping tips. These are Russian tips, and they're bigger than standard piping tips, so you'll need to cut large holes at the ends of your piping bags. I like to cut a little bit less than halfway up the tip, so that it fits snugly and doesn't pop out while I'm piping. Maybe the most important hack is to get the right consistency of your frosting. This is my 4-minute buttercream, and you should be able to pull a spatula through it easily, leaving texture behind that holds its shape and doesn't sink back down into the buttercream. This is what a flower looks like when buttercream has the right consistency. If the buttercream is too stiff, because it's too cold or there's too much sugar in it, it's difficult to squeeze it through the tip, and the petals might pull away with the tip instead of sticking to the cake. You'll also notice jagged texture along the edges of the petals. If the buttercream is too runny, because it's too warm or there's not enough sugar or too much milk, the petals won't have much definition. They'll blob together. So this is the consistency you're looking for. One of the biggest advantages of Russian piping tips is that you can pipe different petals in different colours at the same time. So you need to get those different colours into your piping bag. I like to drop the piping bag into a glass and fold the top over the rim to hold it open, and it's easiest if the bag is pulled tight with the tip visible at the bottom of the glass. Spread your first colour around the piping bag, pushing it against the glass to cover the bag all the way around and all the way down to the piping tip. You want a fairly thick layer so that the outer petals will all be this colour. You can layer another colour or two on top of this, or just spoon your next colour into the middle and push it down to the bottom of the bag so it reaches the piping tip. Now pull the bag out of the glass, and when you twist the bag to push the buttercream down and squeeze the bag, you should see the colours coming through the piping tip. If you layer different colours within the piping bag and you don't push any of the colours all the way down to the piping tip, which is the most common with the middle colour, then when you squeeze the piping bag you won't see that colour coming through. Squeeze the bag until you see both colours coming through, and now you're ready to pipe. Before you pipe with Russian tips onto a cake, the frosting on the cake should have set. Put the cake into the fridge for about an hour and it will get cold and firm, and then when you pipe onto the cake you won't cause any bulges in the frosting. But since the frosting isn't sticky anymore, you really need the frosting in the piping bag to be sticky. Otherwise, when you pipe onto the cake, the flower won't stick to the cake. It will pull away with the piping bag. This happens when you leave piping bags out for about 30 minutes, and the exposed buttercream at the tip crusts, which means it gets hard and loses its stickiness. Squeeze the bag to push the crusted buttercream out, and the buttercream left in the piping bag will be soft and sticky and ready for piping. To prevent crusting, cover Russian piping tips with plastic wrap when you're not using them for long periods of time. Piping with Russian tips is very straightforward. It's the consistency that seems to cause the most problems. When the consistency is right, the flowers will stick to the cake and the petals will pull out and break away neatly from the piping tip, leaving gorgeous flowers behind on the cake. But as you keep piping more and more flowers, you might notice the petals getting less defined and the details start disappearing, and this happens when your buttercream gets too warm, usually from the warmth of your hands as you pipe. Put the whole piping bag into the freezer and set a timer for 1 minute. This is enough time for the buttercream to cool back down and firm up. Then pipe and notice how much more defined your flowers are. Sometimes petals might be too long if you squeeze the bag with a bit too much enthusiasm. There's a hack to fix drooping petals, and it's simple. Use a toothpick. Hold it where you want the petal to end and spin it as you push towards the petal, and you'll lift away the extra part of the petal, leaving a neat edge behind on the remaining petal. I hope these hacks for Russian piping tips have been useful. Ask me any questions in the comments and visit my cake school on BritishGirlBakes.com to learn hundreds of cake decorating techniques and designs. Thanks for watching.